In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun about all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America. Welcome to a special edition of the Corporate Couch. These episodes will be more of a love seat that focuses on one topic and will run 15 to 30 minutes. For each special edition episode, you will hear from one or more outstanding leaders sharing their expertise on the most important challenges in corporate America today. Welcome to a special edition of the Corporate Couch. Today's guest is Teresa Carey. Teresa, welcome to this special edition.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been so long. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Feels like we just saw each other.
Yeah, I know. A relationship that goes back to 2008 when I first worked with you. So yeah,
It doesn't seem possible, does it?
that does not. And I'll get to reveal your age later, I think, because I've done some extensive research on you. But we're celebrating. What we're talking about today is you're celebrating your 30 years of having your own business, Performance Point. And today's special edition is about what you've learned over that 30-year journey in terms of wisdom and leadership. So I'm very excited to talk to you. But I know all about you. Well, tell the audience briefly about yourself.
I always start with the farm story, right? What's a good story without a reference to the farm? But I grew up in a small town, working on the farm. I always mention it because it was a very formative part of my life. And I went to undergrad school in North Carolina, started my career with the document technology company. I was in sales leadership, training and development, which is where I actually developed my first love for developing others. And after I was with that organization, I decided to start my own business. And today what I do is what I love more than anything else is I liberate greatness, personally and professionally, with my clients, and I connect their strengths to the strategy of the organization. I also, on the personal side, I love to cook. I love to eat. So maybe that would classify me as a foodie. My three buckets are probably food, fitness, and family, not necessarily in that order, but I find the food and the fitness kind of balance themselves out a little bit.
Exactly.
I do love to run, bike, and swim. And I have 5 kids. I'm a grandmother, and I love to read and write. So that probably captures the essence of who I am and a little bit about where I've been.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, so you start your company in 1994. Here we are 30 years later. So during that journey for you, Teresa, what were kind of the major lessons you've learned?
Well, there have been a lot, but as I thought about our time together today, I'm really going to zero in on just a few. And one of those is, business is hard, but it's not complicated. If you do the right thing, you focus on a need that's in the market, or maybe you create a need and you work hard at it. Those are the 3 essential elements of business. So I don't want to oversimplify it or make it seem like there's not a lot of sweat equity, because there is, and I'll talk more about that. But I think that's one of the biggest lessons, is that you can be a business owner if you do those 3 things. The other thing that I've seen repeatedly is the importance of being scrappy. You start scrappy and you stay scrappy, especially as a solopreneur, or if you want to maintain and preserve that entrepreneurial growth mindset in the organization. I think you look for an edge that your competition doesn't have, that you have to get creative in how you access and leverage resources. And then the third play would be something I talk about all the time, And that is play from a position of strengths. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. A lot of business owners, they have the pride of being the founder, and they want to play a lot of different roles in the business. And as soon as you can, from a financial perspective, you should play from your best and hire the rest. I think
Yeah.
those are the three biggest lessons out of the many lessons I've learned.
So, what are some of the defining moments in your 30-year journey for you?
I started predominantly in training and development. And then about 4 years into it, I thought, companies are going to start demanding the proof in the pudding, as my grandfather used to say. They're going to want to see an ROI in their development dollars. And sure enough, it happened. And I'm glad that we shifted when we did. We started focusing more on the coaching component. A lot of people call training more of a sheep dipping experience. And I guess we could call coaching more of a shepherding experience. So that was one big turn. The other one was not planned. It was when we received a call from a firm in the mid-Atlantic section of the US, and they basically said cease and desist using the name Performance Partners. That was our name at that time. They were not in our industry, but the name was the same. And it was one of those moments where you're like, why not? Everything else is changing. I mean, I was going through a divorce and my life had basically imploded in so many ways, but ultimately it's been for good. And I think that was also providential in a lot of ways. So we carefully selected another name, Performance Point, and trademarked it. So that was a defining moment and a lesson. And then another turn about that same time was in 2011, 2012, when we really started realizing the importance of power and micro niching, like moving into a lasered area versus being a coach on a broad scale, just business coaching, just executive coaching, just leadership coaching. We started narrowing in and determining that based on all the work I had done, it really made sense to focus on pre-rapid and rapid growth organizations.
Businesses in 94 to today, what are some of the major changes you've seen in companies in that time period?
Hands down, technology, right? Like I was using a Gateway 2000 computer that is big as my desk is today.
Right.
It was ginormous. Floppy disks were falling like manna from heaven. I don't know if you remember getting AOL floppy disk
Oh,
and
yeah.
companies were
Grocery
pursuing you
store, multiple mailings, you would receive them. They were everywhere.
everywhere. Yes. So that was big. And I had to chuckle when I realized, oh my gosh, I was using a BlackBerry and now I use an Apple. So I've gone the full fruit spectrum, I guess, as far as phones. When we made a move from the home my kids grew up in, we had so many laughs because they saw my Rolodex. I had it, still had it down in a desk drawer. So we didn't have CRM systems. We had Rolodexes. You remember that, right? The
Yes, and
little
actually,
black roller
the
thing that had all
Rolodex
the,
term is making a comeback. Like, obviously, there's no physical Rolodex
oh,
anymore, but people talk about the Rolodex, which is, I think, interesting.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, but the physical
no,
Rolodex died with the Gateway 2000.
right.
Uh,
Alphabetized,
Yeah,
whoop.
yeah. By name, power was based on your Rolodex, right?
Oh yeah,
Especially in sales,
oh yeah.
business development, rainmaking. And then certainly social media, it was not with us at that time. It was all about word of mouth and referral. And I kind of like that because there's nothing to hide behind when you have that. So those are some of the biggest changes on the technology side. I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how business feels a lot more complex today. People are busier, deals are made faster. So just the dynamic pace at which things are happening. Now, part of that is I work in that pre-rapid and rapid growth life cycle. I work with RIA aggregators a lot, private equity firms. And so just by sheer nature of that environment, there's a need for speed. that certainly changed. Fortunately, some things haven't changed. And that's what I call those things that are immutable, right? So one thing for sure, integrity is always in vogue. People rely on doing business with firms and with people that have integrity, that have character. Another thing that hasn't changed is the need that we all have for interpersonal connection. And, that's why you and I met up a couple of weeks ago. We've known each other a long time, and we have to keep that connectivity going. And then another thing certainly is hard work. You'll hear that as a theme for me. It's a big part of who I am, the perseverance that's needed. The reason some people are successful in business is they're willing and able to do the things that others aren't. And I think that's definitely stayed the same.
What about the actual leaders? So the leaders in 1994, when you first started the business till now, what is different there in terms of leadership?
I think some of the things that haven't changed, if I could just start on that theme again, is some of the fundamental competencies that are important for leadership have stayed the same. Strategic agility, for example, it's probably more important than ever. Developing others, delegation, executive presence and communication, decision making, all those are still important. They were important then, they're important today as leadership competencies. I think in the power of change and the dynamic environment that we're referencing, it's almost paradoxical. Things are moving faster, but leaders are finding they need to take more time to reflect for deep work. They need to get off of the dance floor and move up onto the balcony so that they can really mire themselves in the thought, the strategic thinking that's required to be a better leader. If you think about it, there's a cause for that pause from the standpoint of less stress, better decision making, all those things that go into being a better leader. I didn't see a lot of leaders do that or be conscious about the need for that. I think there was much more reactivity. And today, leaders are finding they've got to take the time needed to reflect.
Yeah, I think that's so important too. For me, what I've seen, it's just it's the constant being on. You're accessible via your phone whenever, so you have to be mindful of taking that time to do deep thinking work. So I think it's a great that you've seen that occur more and more in today's world. So that I love that. Um, so, you started the business. This is my deep research on your age. So you started the business at 31 and now you're 61. So what would your 61-year-old self tell your 31-year-old self in kind of hindsight and advice?
In the spirit of us knowing this is really not about me, and I don't want the 30-year anniversary to be about me as much as it is about helping other people who think they have that entrepreneurial itch or they're dissatisfied with where they are. I created a concept around that years ago called the attractive trap. And it might mean that you're trapped in a position, you're trapped in a role, you're trapped in an organization, and for whatever reason, it might not be serving you. So I think if you find yourself in that situation, a lot of what my 61-year-old self would tell my 31-year-old self would still apply. And part of that is trust your gut. I talk frequently about heart decisions and about gut decisions. We all have the ability within us to read what our discernment is telling us if we'll just listen. And so that built-in mechanism lets us know when there's not resonance, when we're with a particular individual or in a certain situation or even entertaining an opportunity. We have to listen to that. And then conversely, we know when things are right. We have that peace. We have that feeling of certainty. And we're not wrestling with the decision when things are the way they're supposed to be. So trust that gut and that heart, even at 31 or wherever you are, whatever stage or age or season of life that you find yourself in. I think another one is everyone is not going to like you, and that's okay. Follow your values. Again, trust your truth. And the people who are supposed to find you, be attracted to you, and stay in your life will be there. And those who aren't won't be. And either way, you're enough. And you still have high, lasting worth and value. I think the third one would be something, Jeff, around grace, the power of giving yourself grace. I worked with a female business owner years ago, and she sold her business, but we're great friends today, continue to stay in touch. And she used to say, it's not about perfection, it's about connection. So give yourself the grace that you need, give others the grace that they need, and don't worry so much about perfection. Just worry about doing the right thing, learning from the lessons, taking the value out of those lessons and those experiences, and then converting that into wisdom for the long haul and the long game that's ahead of you.
Teresa, thanks so much for doing this special edition to celebrate your 30 years of helping leaders liberate their own greatness. I've worked with thousands of people over my career, and you're one of the best I've ever worked with. So I'm grateful that you and I met, and thank you for being on this special edition of the Corporate Couch.
Yeah, it was my honor, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me back.
Thank you for listening to this special edition of the Corporate Couch. If you enjoyed the episode, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me weekly where I interview great leaders that share their career journey and their leadership wisdom.